Hello and welcome back. If you haven't watched before, welcome. If you watched months ago, welcome back. Welcome back to me as well. I had done a short video on why I needed to take a break for a bit before picking back up. So we'll get into that a little bit, but today is a sunny, not so chilly day here in Northeast Connecticut. I am coming to you from my farm, Easy Acres Gnomestead, and you're watching Flionfree Fibers, which is our fiber products from our farm. So welcome back. It's good to kind of get things back into the swing. As far as what we did, so we had a lot of changes last spring when I started the kind of our farm cast per se, and my computer's telling me to update, and there was a lot of changes. So I had a couple personal losses, which did affect some of the changes we made, and with that, I kind of reflected and decided to leave my corporate job. So that's a big change as well. And one of the losses was a local shepherdess, which is where I actually got my sheep from and on our conservation grant. So the big change there was we actually took in some of her sheep and the older bloodlines, because it is a conservation grant. They are a critically endangered breed. And to continue with that and expand our flock, we needed to make some changes on the farm. So we decided to forego my goat breeding. We had Nigora goats, which I bred my own bloodline, and focus on the sheep and our Angora rabbits. So I only have so much pasture, and the larger the flock gets, the more we need the pasture for them and to focus on them. So those were some of the big changes. We had to readjust. There's been a lot of moving around and changing of things. So a lot of things in committing to what are we going to do going forward with the farm. So made some changes here as well with the podcast and our farm cast. So we're still gonna, talk about knitting and all the fiber arts, weaving, felting. I kind of dabble in most of it. But I wanted to do some more fiber education. I think a lot of people love fiber arts, and they knit and they weave and they do a lot of things. But as far as really knowing fibers, the content and what those different fibers mean, and why those different fibers behave the way they do in our in what we're making, I think it's a piece that's missing with a lot of artists and hobbyists. They're just they love what they buy, and they buy what's popular and what everyone's talking about, but not really knowing the fibers and what that's going to do. So we're going to do that. And then I'm also going to talk about our product line, Flionfree Fibers, which is our products from our sheep and from our Angora rabbits. And I get some alpaca and stuff from other farms that they're mostly rescues and stuff, so they give me the fiber and we work with those. So we'll share all that here as well. Admin stuff. Well, if you would follow the farm, give us a like, subscribe, and all the things that YouTube likes. You can find us on Facebook. Right now it's just under the farm, Easy Acres Gnomestead. I will be combining the pages on Facebook and possibly on Instagram. Right now there's two, so there's both Flionfree Fibers and Easy Acres Gnomestead. We're still working out the marketing end of things and how we want to go. If we want to, because farming is one business per se, and then the fiber is another, even though they really coincide. So we're still kind of working through that and working through our business planning for 2024. I did just register for Save 'em to Shave 'em to Save 'em program. So if you're in with that already and have a passport, we do have Gulf Coast native sheep products. So I have roving, yarn, I have some hand spun. I just brought 14 pounds to the mill. So you saw in the last little short video that I was working on the fibers. I brought 14 pounds up to the mill. Still have plenty downstairs. I just washed some the other day here that wasn't going to the mill. And we have dryer balls and several products that I make from our fiber here. So the Save 'em to Shave 'em, if Shave 'em to Save 'em, keep saying it backwards. If you're unfamiliar with it, it is a program through the Livestock Conservancy that promotes and shepherdess and shepherds throughout the country that are dedicated to raising heritage and endangered breeds of sheep. So what they do is they give you a passport, and I think you need to get 4 ounces of each to get your sticker. So each time you purchase 4 ounces of a different breed that's in that passport, you get a sticker to fill your whole passport. And honestly, I don't know what happens when you fill your book. I haven't gotten that far, but I did register for that to help educate on our breed and bring more. There's really not a lot of shepherds up here in New England that raise Gulf Coast native. There are a few that raise them. I believe I'm the only one working really with their wool at this time. I am working with another farm on their wool production and speaking with them. I do get some wool from some of the other farms that raise for meat instead. So working on it, we're all working on our network and we all talk to each other, but there's very few of us here in New England because Gulf Coast native are more of a southern sheep, hence the Gulf Coast. But they do very well here in New England as well. So educating on that. But let's catch up. Let's get into knitting. It's a few minutes of everything else that's going on. So last we left off, knitting wise and fiber arts wise, I was doing a test knit, or I had registered for a test knit and I was waiting for the yarn. So the yarn came from Arcane Fibers in Canada. Lovely, lovely yarn, like so incredibly soft. I love the colorways. They came out beautiful. I'm going to show you a picture because I don't have them here with me. They are put away right now. As I make so many things, they have to get put away. Let's see. And I ended up making 2 actually. So I submitted both of those, and I'll put the Ravelry link down below so you can see what it was. So it was Rogue Ambitions, and it was her Luminaria hat. I'm not finding all my albums. So I made 2, and because it was a brioche, the way she wanted someone that hadn't done brioche before to test her pattern, but also her videos on the explanation of how to do brioche. The only thing I had there with that, the struggle that I had a little bit with it, but got through it no problem, was the videos were standard throwing for knitting, and I knit continental, so I kind of had to translate them for continental and how I knit. But it all worked out. And oh, here they are. So this was the first one I made, if you can see that. I don't know how well it's lit. And it came out excellent. It actually, I really liked, maybe that's a bit better. So they're somewhat reversible. That is technically the right side, and those colors pop. And then I went ahead to make a second one And I actually already have yarn to make a third one. They are so squishy and warm. It's incredible. The brioche makes such a lovely hat. So there's me wearing that hat. Great sizing. It really is. It really is. If you haven't done brioche, I highly recommend it. The tutorials are really good. So that's Rogue Ambitions in her Luminara hat. She does a lot of patterns, which I really do like her designs. Speaking of hats and Gulf Coast Native, I kind of skipped right over to what am I wearing. This was just ended. It was a knit along with Junction Fiber Mill, which is where I brought our fleeces up to the mill. And it's called the Read This hat. So basically what it is they have the pattern of the hat, but you customize the wording, and I designed a sheet. So it has a whole schematic of all the letters, and then it has a chart where you can fill in your letters, and there's a calculation of spacing and everything that you can use as well. She did really well on developing that. And I did it for our sheet. So it says Gulf Coast Native. So it's been a good conversation starter, and I am working on, like I said, bringing more awareness of the breed and their fiber and everything. So this is actually all Gulf Coast Native wool. The dyed wool is from another shepherdess down in Georgia, the Ornery Shepherd, and the white is my hand spun from my flock. So it's all Gulf Coast Native wool, and I believe hers is milled, but then she dyes it when she gets it back. So and I'll put a link to her below as well. If you're down there, she has she keeps hers going as well. So yes, so and then the test knit went really well, and then I had my shawl, which we talked about, was the Stephen West Fiery Foliage shawl. That took so long. It was months, but if you've ever done a Stephen West, like, they are Stephen West size. He is a tall guy. So my shawl is probably over 6 feet wide. I can't even wingspan it. But I did do a video shoot with it. It came out beautiful. I finished it in time for Rhinebeck. There was a great story with it. I had 2 rows and about this much left plus bind off, and I lost to Yarn Chicken. It was awful. And I was all panicky, and I didn't need a whole other skein. So I put it out there, and this wonderful lady in New Hampshire sent me a message. She says, I have a little ball left in the same weight from a project I did. I'm gonna mail it out to you today. Hopefully you don't lose twice. And I'm like, oh, thanks for that. But I didn't. I was so panicky because it really was this little tiny ball. And but it worked. I got through, and it was an I-cord bind off, so it takes all that extra. And I'm gonna put a snippet in here as far as that photo shoot. All right. So You got to see that. It's such a wonderful shawl. I actually ended up wearing it to Rhinebeck on the second day. I went both Saturday and Sunday. I drove down both days, so 6 hours in the car each day. I got my husband to take me the first day. Um, it was a really kind of a quick, it was rainy, but it really wasn't bad. But it was a quick get around, see who I want to see, grab what I want to like get. And then day two, I went down with a couple friends and it was more relaxed. I walked around, kind of picked up more things, got a sweater quantity of yarn. I actually, on the drive down, decided I was going through Ravelry and deciding on my next sweater, picked one out. So I'll show that in a little bit. But I was all set and ready. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I was still working on my sweater that I wanted to finish for Rhinebeck. I was still working on it. Like, I drove down both days knitting on it. I didn't get it done in time to wear it for Rhinebeck, but I did get it done in time for New England Fiber Festival, so I wore it there. So I do have that with me, though. So the shawl's too big to show on here, but the sweater I do have, actually. So this is a pattern from Sabito Farms, and we had talked about this previously, that I was trying to find what I was going to use for the main color. So in the pattern, the leaves, the whole yoke is leaves and acorns, and they're just white, and they use kind of a yellow mustard for the main color, and that was it. And I have this grand scheme of, I'm going to do all these fall colors for the leaves, and I'm going to do the acorns in brown. And I used, so my shawl was all Bad Sheep yarn colorways, and I'm going to put the Ravelry link to the whole project so you have all the colorways that I used for that. And then for this, it was all Bad Sheep as well, but I couldn't decide on like what I was going to do for the main body. And I didn't want a white or cream because I'm going to stain it. And I thought a navy blue would be wonderful, but then I wouldn't have been able to do the brown acorns because it would have just gotten lost, and I didn't want to do the acorns in white. So I finally found a colorway, which is no longer available. It was actually going out. It is called Owl. And here is my finished sweater, this beautiful yoke. And so the yarn, it was perfect. So if you can see it, and I will put the pictures. It's kind of a white gray, and then it has flecks of all the fall colors. There's a little bit of the yellow and reds and oranges and browns all flecked in there. The pattern I had to adjust a little bit because I wasn't any one of the sizes. I was all over the map, and then none of the sizes as well. So I have a really long torso. I'm built weird. I don't know. I'm just built different. No, and that's a great thing about knitting, is we can make it to fit us. So I ended up doing twisted rib on the bottom, and instead of a straight rib, and I did 10 rows of the ribbing to add a little length, and then I added length to the torso as well. I went on to the sleeves. I believe I did them 19 inches, which I don't think that was on any of the things. I did pull out a sweater. Now, my sweaters are a little bit longer, but with this being superwash, I know I can stretch it, and it will stretch. So I only went 19 inches. Instead, I think mine are 19 and a half or 20 on sweaters that I really like how they are. But like I said, with the superwash, I knew I could stretch it and block it out. I also did a folded cuff. And what I did with that was I did 5 rows, but I dropped down a needle size to do the first 5 rows. I purled a row and increased the needle size to the pattern specific, and then continued on. So with this being hand dyed yarn, I also had to helical knit this, which that's basically just you're working with several skeins at once with hand-dyed yarn. The skeins can be different. So sorry, my phone's making all sorts of noises. And so I was working 2 skeins at once and swapping them out as I went, so they just kind of blended together, so you couldn't see any changes in the amount of coloring and flecking in there. Nothing changed, it all just mixed together. I did that throughout the body and the sleeves, so it's pretty much seamless. You can't tell there's different skeins used. I also, in here, and these were all new techniques for me, I just kind of made it up as I went along, picked up different techniques and went with them. In here, I adjusted the acorns a bit so their stem is a little bit shorter, and I didn't want to be carrying 3 colors as I got up into this leaf. So I carried it for 1 row, and then I dropped the brown, worked on my leaves. So this is Owl colorway, which I said, like, it's no longer available anyway. This is Chocolate. And this is Red Dragon. I worked this up in the DK. And then as I switched up here, I actually switched over to fingering because I had these colors from my shawl in both the DK and, or both the Red Dragon and the yellow, which is the Talisman, and I marled them and ran through a few rows here, and then I switched them off to fade up into the Talisman. So I did a row of Talisman in the DK, then I went back to the marling, then I did a couple rows. So I just kind of went rows, swapping it out, so it faded it real nicely into that yellow. So it is, I love the way it came out. And then the last piece I kind of embellished on was when I did twisted rib up here as well in the collar. And I always leave a little bit ends because I just paranoid. But I did Jenny's super stretchy bind off, but I purled it instead of knitting it to put this nice crocheted looking edge on the outside. So if you knit it, this kind of flips to the inside. So you can do it the opposite way and do a purl bind off, and it makes this nice crocheted edge, which I think I picked up in an Andrea Mowry video. She had kind of talked about that. So I was like, ooh, let me try that. And I really like the way it came out. So beautiful sweater. I steam blocked it because it is superwash, and I know people are like, there's all sorts of conversations about that as far as, well, if you steam block it, what happens when you wash it? My plan to wash it, one, I wanted to steam block it and kind of put it where I want. I actually am going to steam block it again because when I blocked it the first time, I spread that yoke out and I didn't spread the sleeve out separately, so I just spread the whole yoke. So the sleeve needs to be blocked out a little bit. And then also I blocked it out the way it was, and there are some short rows on the back to bring it up. I need to block that and bring that up because I kind of just laid it flat and blocked it. So I need to bring that back up a little bit because it does look a little bit high, and I'm pretty sensitive to things on my neck. So I need to get that front end down. So a little bit, when I wash it, it's probably going to go in a bag, wash, and pull out so it doesn't have any of that weight to stretching. It's going to be like basically locked in place. And I do have bags that you put your garment in and then you fold them down and it keeps it right in place. So that is how I'm going to wash it. So there's no stretching. So I'm not worried about steam blocking versus how I'm going to wash it in the future. So that was a Sabito Farm pattern. I will put the link to Ravelry below. Great sweater. They have some other really great designs. The pattern was pretty easy to follow, and the math as far as different sizing, I had no issues with. There was only one section. Yep, just one section with the short rows on the back that I didn't really understand how they were saying to do it. It said just knit in, I don't know, 22, I think it was, and you'll be in the middle. Except for it had you start the row on the left side. So when you knit in from the left side, you were knitting across the front. So I'm like, well, if I go in 22, I'm going to be in the middle of the front, and I'm doing short rows in the front. So I had to knit around to the back, and I don't know. It just wasn't, I'm very like literal. So when you say knit in 22, I'm knitting it. I'm not reading into it saying, oh, you mean when I get over here. Like, I don't read into, I'm very literal. And yeah, it was just a point where I just needed to make sure I was correct in what I was doing. So I asked a few people, and we all came to the same conclusion. And it turned out fine. It works. What else have I been working on? I've done some weaving. I've done a lot of projects because I go to farmers market, so we do a lot of production. I do soap bags, which I can never keep in stock, and then hand woven towels, and our dryer balls, which are from our sheep. So when I process a fleece, it goes to, here's what's going into yarn, here's what's going into like felting, here's what's going into dryer balls, and then everything else actually after that goes into like our bird cages. We have fiber cages for nesting cages for birds to take. So and then I have felted catnip mice that just I can't keep in stock, so I have to make more for this weekend because they sold out last weekend. And then another thing I started this year, I actually took dryer balls and decided I was going to felt some Christmas ornaments at it. So this one's actually for my parents. I have to send this out in the mail. Funny story, my parents have been together for 50 years, and my mom has always bought my dad a bottle of British Sterling every year. It started as a thing, and then it became a running joke. So she can't find it now. So I decided to make them a Christmas bulb that says 50 years of British Sterling, so they can hang that on their tree this year. I'm kind of making them a New England care package. They miss New England. They don't miss the weather, so they're out in Arizona. So I'm going to send that out. So that's a great way. They're really fun to take. So I take our dryer balls, and then I just melt designs. I actually had made, let's see, a few others. I do a lot of felt. I don't know if they're in here. And let's see. I just recently went through my camera and started putting things in files so I could find everything, and now of course I can't find things. So different Christmas designs. The yarn one, I actually that was some practice plying for different plying methods, and it looked kind of Christmassy, so I just basically took it and felted it into one of our dryer balls and made it a Christmas ornament. It was really good yarn that looked Christmassy. I made a mushroom one. Those are felted acorns, so those are acorn caps that I put some different felting balls in and made that. So those are really cute. Let's see, and I did some weaving. Again, all my stuff is packed because we have so many events right now with the holidays that everything's packed up and ready to go. I'll show this scarf. That's a scarf I just recently did. It is, you can see in there, Tencel baby alpaca. It's gold and maroon and silver. There's merino. Several of it are hand dyed from local dyers. It's kind of lightweight. It's really pretty. It's very festive, so you could add it as just a outfit piece, or actually wear it with your coat and kind of dress it up. So a lot of different things with the holidays, kind of keeping everything rolling. Whips. Let's see. What are we working on? So I have this hat, and I actually started another one. I did not bring up my husband's Musselburgh. Hold on. Let's see what I got here. All right, so I have this hat, and I changed the way, like they had it where it was, the main color was the entire body, and then this was your contrast color in here. So of course, I just kind of do things as I do them. So this, I'm actually working on a second one. I haven't done the graphing for what it's gonna say yet, but I think I'm just gonna do GCN with this sheep, and I'm gonna have a sheep on it, a sideways sheep as well. So I have to design that and graph that out. And when I say design, it's not that hard. It's actually very simple. Like I said, the lettering is all comes in a schematic for you. So it really is a very quick, easy knit. The Read This Hat from Junction Fiber Mill. You can get it on Unraveling or on their website. So I am working on a second one. I did twisted rib here. I changed the green, and now this time this line I did in purple. And then I'm gonna still do white here. I'm just kind of deciding on it. I do like the white to white, but I'm just gonna change it up, see how it comes out. I'm gonna have these available as well to, this is all Gulf Coast native fiber, so that is, we're gonna have that to help promote the breed as well in our store. And then I am working on my second Musselburgh. So I did the first one, I made it for my husband. I used yarn, that's actually what's left of it, from Fiber Seed. Now Fiber Seed was at New England Fiber Festival last year, and they had this colorway that I absolutely loved. And I decided I was going to make a sweater out of it, but I didn't know how much yardage I needed. So I put it down, I turned around with my friend, and we're looking up the pattern on Ravelry. And I was sitting there doing the calculations on what amount I was going to need, like how many skeins I needed to buy. And I was like, all right, here we go. And I turned around to grab it, and it was gone. Someone had snatched it. And I asked them, I'm like, oh, do you have more of this? I'm going to make a sweater. They didn't have any more. I was so bummed. So this year when I went, I was like, I'm gonna get some fiber from Fiber Seed, or some yarn from Fiber Seed. And my husband wanted a hat, and I told him I'm gonna make you a Musselburgh, which to him he's like, whatever. But he had a wool hat, like a full wool hat, and of course washed it and it shrank. So we're like, we're gonna go with superwash, even though I don't love all the chemicals. But he wanted black and gray, like the typical guy. Oh, black and gray. And I'm like, I am not doing black gray. So I found some other colors that had the black and whatever. And the great thing with Fiber Seed in their display is they had a lot of swatches. Now, mind you, swatches will change with needle size and whether you're doing knitting or crocheting or weaving, but they had swatches at least there to kind of show you more of what it was going to knit up like versus just like, here's the skein. So I really did like that. And I saw this swatch for Boston Tea Party, and I said, wow, that's kind of cool. I bet he would like that. He did. I sent him a picture, and he's like, yeah, do that. And then I walked around and sent him pictures of a bunch of others, and he kind of was slow to respond. So I just went and bought it anyway. And he goes, just do the first one. I'm like, great, I already did. So this did up really cool. So if you're familiar with the Musselburgh pattern, is you start at the end, the top of the hat. So I did the disappearing loop, and you increase, and then you knit down, and you knit and you knit, and you basically knit a long tube, and then you close it and you stuff the hat up into the hat, so you have a double layer hat. So I made this, and it turned out so awesome. And I posted it, even Fiber Seed was like, how cool is that? The skein changed pooling as I went. So he actually ended up with 2 hats out of 1. So I didn't have to change colors or whatever. I know Gauge Dye Work, I believe, has some skeins where it's actually calculated so it will change colors. So when you flip the hat the other way, it changes. But this is how it came out. So it completely changed pooling. So one hat you have this stripe, and then the other one you have this blotchy pooling. It was just so awesome the way it turned out. And here's the flip side of it. It made for two absolutely wonderful hats, and there's the other one. So he can flip it back and forth. There it is on, and there's the other one. So it came out really cool. So I like that. And now I'm working, so I bought 2 skeins from them. I am working with their Purple Thunder now. And I think these are both made, or colorways, maybe her son, I'm not really sure, helped design. So this is extremely purple, like super purple grape, with flecks of black and gray in it. So this is where I'm at on this one. This is my knit night hat where I can just kind of knit and knit and knit. I've already done the increases. So you start here, you knit down. I'm going to knit all the way down. I think it's like 18 inches. And then I close up. So this is I think I'm doing the size medium here. And his was a large. So that's those going. And what else was I working on? I'm working on those 2 hats. No big projects right now. I do have, so I mentioned I bought a sweater's quantity of yarn. So let me look up if I can show you the pattern. I did buy a sweater's quantity at Rhinebeck this year. Go to my Ravelry. And I went through and I wanted another color work. Oops, not that. Color work sweater, the yoke, but I had a very specific, so I actually had a very specific color scheme in mind, and I was looking for a sweater that I felt fit that. And I went through a couple, but I wanted it really warm. So this is an Aran weight. And of course, now I'm going to have to rip through and find it. All right. So it's the, I don't want to say it wrong, Hopi Hoppy by Lincoln Newman. And that's it. So, and there's a lot of different colorway options in here. But that's really pretty, but again, not gonna wear the white. I really do like that though. That's very colorful. So my colorway, I'm gonna do the main body in a gray. Sorry for the noise. So I got my entire thing from Utopia. So this is the gray. This is Utopia Natural. So it's kind of like a gray brown, and it's the all natural. And then my color scheme for the yoke is here. So the black is just going to be some highlight. I'm actually going to do some like tracing on some of them. But let's see what colors we have here. So the black is called Charcoal. This is their Indigo Bunting. I had to make sure I was reading that right. Their Pumpkin, which is not like an orangey pumpkin. It is, I don't know, more like a rust orange. And then this is called Citron. And it's not that bright citron. Again, it's more of that muted. It actually looks like, it almost looks like this was the base that they then dyed on. So there's a difference when, here's a fiber thing. Um, when you dye on a white, usually a lot of people want to dye on a white, and the white comes out and it brings out the lighter colors, brighter colors in that. But great thing about when you take a heathered or a darker base and you dye off like a gray is you get these more muted, colorful, and then you get like, you kind of get that heathering in there in the colors that you don't get when you dye on a white. So it just brings some dimension to your colors when you have that different dye base. I don't know that this is what they dyed off of, but to me, with the heathering in here, it looks like they dyed off a darker color base. It doesn't look like this was dyed on a white base. Just kind of seeing what. So it says these are leftovers. They're milling leftovers that they did. So I would definitely think that we are looking at a darker color base just with the heathering. So it gives that rich heathering in it. And that's where I really like the natural in there. So we're not just dealing with the washout of the white. That's my preference. But I had that colorway in mind and I'm like, I'm going to put, I mean, these are just not like the colors I would pick, but I seen these colors together and I was like, I want this color scheme in a yoke. And then I picked up the black because on one of the samples, I really liked how they kind of outlined in the black. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do that with it or if I'm going to, and I don't think I mentioned this in when I talked about the Subito feather sweater. When I got to one of the rows where it just had the brown in the acorn for like one stitch every, I don't know how many, I actually skipped over that and went back and did a duplicate stitch over those after I was done with the sweater. So I might duplicate stitch the outlining of it. So if you haven't duplicate stitched, it's super, super easy. And it is a great way if you're doing color work and there's just like this one little fleck of color, then you're, instead of carrying it all the way around, you can kind of just go back and do a duplicate stitch in there. So I might do that with the black. It just depends on when I get the chart, but I need to get this cast on because I really want to wear this sweater as we get into winter. And the last one I busted out in less than a month, but it was super focused getting that done. So that's where we are for that. And then that was at New York. So that was my big purchase at Rhinebeck actually this year. And it was funny, I laughed to myself because I had recently had someone come up to me at a farmer's market and say, hey, do you do custom work? And I said, well, I can. Depends on what you're looking for. And they said, well, like a sweater. And I pulled up my sweater and I said, depends, like this. And they were like, yeah, I would love, a custom sweater. And I said, well, if I'm being honest, the cost of fiber in this sweater alone in the yarn is about $150. And then I have to add the time it takes me to actually make it. So you're looking at several $100s for a sweater. And the lady was kind of like, oh my God. And she was like, oh, okay, thank you, and walked away. I'm not being rude, but like, as a maker, you have to, you know that one, you have to buy the yarn. And then all the hours and time and dedication we put into it. And then never mind a sweater for someone else, all the measurements, like all the math I do on my own is a lot. So if I make a sweater and decide to sell it, it is what it is. If it fits you, it fits you, but there is a lot in it. So when I went to buy this yarn, it was after that, and I bought the yarn for it, and I kind of laughed to myself because though I know the value of my own knit sweater, and I never bought it, like I saw a sweater last year at Rhinebeck, and I think it was $600, and the person's like, oh, it's $600, and you know, a lot of people they'll buy it together and kind of do like the whatever those traveling pants were, that movie or show or something, I forget what it was, but you know, friends will share it and they'll split the cost, and I'm like, I'm not going to argue the. I see the detail and the work that went into this. Like, it's totally worth that. It's not something I'm going to spend right now, but great work. So when I bought the yarn and I went up and paid for it, and I knew full well what I was going to pay, and it came up to like $200, and I laughed because I'm like, you know, I'm spending $200 on yarn for a sweater that I am going to now go home and spend a month or two making on all the hours I'm going to put in. The actual cost of this sweater, I wouldn't even go into a store and buy it for $200, but I will to make it myself. So I think it's funny as makers, like we do that and we know, but we're not going to go buy it because I'm sure there's a lot of you like that are like me. I look at it, I'm like, no, I could make that, and I'll go pay way more to make it myself. But it's the joy of we made this, and I wear my sweater around and people are like, oh, that's lovely, and I'm like, yeah, I made it, and you get to talk about it. So it's a lot different when you put the money into the effort into it and you're like, yeah, this is well worth the money because I made this. So that's my little spiel on this. We make stuff, but it's expensive. So that was my big purchase at New York. I bought some little things, nothing really big. I was after a couple little things. I bought some dyes, some natural dyes, some indigo, and different things, but that was really about it. I just kind of enjoyed the time there and seeing different people. And then I went to New England and I was on a mission. So my Angora rabbit passed away last year, and I don't know why, and it happens sometimes with rabbits. I mean, it happens with all animals, but and it was kind of a rough week because we lost a piglet on Sunday. I think mom rolled over on her, and then I lost a lamb the next day, with first year mom, and the lamb, she was just weak. I looked outside and saw her, and I went out, and being conservation sheep, and the way we agreed to raise them is we don't interfere. And if I do have to interfere, like I wouldn't have been able to breed that lamb, me personally. It would have lived and we would have placed it elsewhere, but for the conservation of the breed and us trying to keep, what we're doing is keep the strongest of the bloodlines and the strongest of the sheep, that have no interfering, that girl would not have been able to breed on our farm for what we're doing. So she would have been placed elsewhere. So I got to get involved, but unfortunately she never regained her strength, and she did make it the day, but she passed away, and I was holding her when she passed away. So yep, that's farming. And then the next day I woke up and my rabbit had passed away. So it was a really rough week last winter. We had hoping not to repeat that. That was probably one of the roughest. I had never lost a baby on the farm, so that was a all in one. So we got through it. It was a little rough, but so I had a mission, as I was saying, back into it. New England Fiber Festival, I wanted to restart my Angora line. So I had all the fiber from my previous Angora rabbit, and I wanted to get back in and get that moving again, especially with, that was kind of the compromise, if I had to get out of my Nigoras, which was my mohair, I needed to then up my Angora line of fiber. So I went in, knew where I was going, what I was doing. I beelined it right over. I got a breeding pair of satin Angoras, which is what I had before, and they are lovely, and we've already got lots of fiber off them. So we'll mix some of that in. I have some shorter fleeces that are like the same staple length as my rabbits, so I'm gonna mix some of that in. I might just kind of do singles and ply them together as well. So I will have Angora comb top available as well on our page. So we're working on possibly a website instead of Etsy. So I'm gonna more to that come in the future. So that's part of 2024 as well. But I got my rabbits, very happy. Wasn't sure my husband was gonna be very happy with me, but I got him his hat, right? So then I spent the rest of the day going around. I got some fiber seed. I wanted the leather bracelet that is the measuring tape. So I do have that. I got that from Cottontail Fibers. So finally, I looked all over at New York for this and could not find them. So this one is a 16 inches. You wrap it around, it's a bracelet. It's really good when I'm making hats and I have to keep measuring, and I keep it with me, especially as I'm carrying it around or hiking. So, and then what else did I get? Not much. I mean, I really didn't get much there. And then my other main thing was I took an intentional plying class for my spinning. I do spin, and I learned to spin years ago from the same lady. I took a class from her, and I hadn't even had a wheel yet. The class was actually full, but she goes, just show up, I'll fit you in. She's great. Let me see if I have her name here. And okay, well, it's Marcia Weiner. So look for her at New England Fiber Festival, because she usually is there teaching. She always does a beginner's class. I took that several years ago, and then I just did the intentional plying with her, which I think that was her first time teaching that there. I really liked it. So I had a lot of fun with doing different plies. I had done, your standard ply, and then I had done chain plying recently, which is, you can't really see it, the skein behind me. I chain plied that because I had actually spun that by colorway, and I wanted the colorways to stick together, and I couldn't figure it out. So it sat on the bobbins for a while I was figuring out how am I going to ply this and put the same colors together, because my typical, I spin 2 bobbins and then I just put them together, so the colorways don't actually match up, which is really pretty, but that's not what I wanted for this skein. And while I was kind of looking into that, I learned that chain plying, you were actually just working with it as a single, and the way you're applying it, you put the colors together. So I worked on that. I actually had to put it onto another wheel to my country spinner to slow down the ratio so that I could really focus on putting the colors together with the chain and how big I was making my loops. So I really enjoyed her class because there was a lot of different plying methods, and it was super fun. Learned a lot of things. I also recently took a kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like a question and answer thing with Terry Spins. That's what this class was. She does a lot of different classes. And that was fun. Actually went over a lot of things that it kind of reinforced things I already knew. We talked about fibers and why they behave the way they do. Again, like the more you know about fibers and the way they behave and the way they work, the more in depth your projects are going to become, and you're going to start choosing things not just for colorway but for the fiber content and for what you're doing. So it's really fun. I did a lot of research this summer when as things were changing on the farm. I was like, all right, where are we going? What are we doing? I'm not a big reader. Reading actually puts me to sleep. But I also work in the woods in the summer, so in the forest. So I spend a lot of time alone and out in the forest. So I can listen to books while I work, and I find that like while I'm doing a lot of things, I usually listen to music, but I can also listen to books. So I listened to so many books this summer, and I wish there were more. So I listened to Vanishing Fleece, and if you've never read or listened to Vanishing Fleece, such a great book, huge eye-opener on and I knew a lot of this, but I didn't know like details in different places. And like she did a whole in-depth thing. It was great. But highly recommend Vanishing Fleece. It'll open your eyes to what's going on in the wool industry, especially in the US, and how all of these farms that are like trying to keep the wool industry going in the US, especially with the heritage breeds, what's going on, and the lack of mills and the lack of people paying attention to where they're buying their wool or where they're getting it from. Like, I see there's some places like they're purposely getting their wool from out of the country because they want wool. They don't want the superwash commercial that we have. And they're bringing it in, but we have it here. If you look for those small farms, it's not, you can't buy it like commercially. You've got to go to these small farms. So it was some of the details were a big eye opener, and she did a lot of research. It was a really good book, and I loved it. I loved listening to it, and it kind of, I mean, I'm not an overly emotional person, but I kind of almost went like cried at the end. The ending was really sad. So you gotta listen to it though. So and then I did listen to, I have a list here, a couple others that were really good. I listened to Unraveled, which was about a lady who, she had a corporate job as well, but then the COVID hit, and I think she was a knitter or something. She wanted to knit a sweater from a raw fleece. So she actually did a bunch of research. She ended up learning how to shear. So she didn't just use her own fleece, she sheared her own fleece. Of course, there's a whole story into that. And processed it, washed it, everything. And then, and I can completely appreciate that, because when I first got my flock, I was also given a fleece, and I had like all these different, like trying to wash this fleece. It was really caked with mud. Trying to get it clean, like, you know, you see the super white, and I just was like, wow, what do I do with these tips? I couldn't get it clean. I discovered Suent method of washing, which maybe I'll do something later about that. I definitely will on our farm page, on our farm cast page. But I finally did that, got it clean enough, and I was still ready to toss it until I met a lady when I was purchasing my floor loom, and I was telling her about it, and she said, no, those are the best fleeces to make a rug out of. And a light bulb went on. So I took this fleece, which I did not shear, but I had done everything else with. I carded it all up. I think I probably carded each bat twice to really mix it up and fluff it. And then I spun the entire thing, the entire fleece. I plied the entire fleece. I had all these, I don't even know, things of yarn sitting on the castle of my floor loom. And I made a rug. Like, I made a rug. It is next to my bed. I absolutely love it. I completely appreciate her effort to like make this entire thing. It was a good book. I think it went into other areas more than I cared about. For me, I wasn't like, I don't really care about the personal life and all of that. And some of the stuff that was mixed in there, I'm like, eh. But I kind of lost interest in a few parts, but then it picked back up about the fleece and what she was doing. So it's a good book. Then someone mentioned to me a book which actually has nothing to do with fiber, but I really liked it. It kind of is more of my personality. I'm one of those people that, like, when I get into something, I kind of delve, but it was more of a not to get discouraged, to like keep pushing forward. It's called The Power of Choice. The book is, Melissa Stockwell, I believe. It was a female veteran who was injured, I believe, in Iraq, and came back, and she actually ended up becoming an Olympic athlete. There's a whole story, and it's basically about perseverance and not letting life get you down no matter what goes on. So it was a good timing for the book because I had a lot of changes going on and I was also trying to make a lot of things. So really, really good book though. Like what a great story. And if you're an athlete at all, I have been an athlete my entire life. So it was just like, oh yeah, I totally get this lady. She is so stubborn and yeah, I get it. So great book, The Power of Choice. It is on, so I rented them through my library, so I listened to them I think on Hoopla, but it is available on an audio version out there, which is why I listened to it. I probably binge listened to that thing, like hiking and everything else. And then I'm currently in the middle of A Short History of the World According to Sheep. Again, an eye opener as far as some of the things are just like mind blowing that I didn't know, and not so much about fleeces, but about different things that happened. There was one part where it talked about how they tax dogs, and this is over in Europe or whatever, but how they tax dogs, but they don't tax working dogs. And that's why all the working dogs, so they to know if it was a pet dog or a working dog, they dock their tails of the working dogs. And you're kind of like, oh, I wonder if that's, why a lot of collies aren't docked, but why, I have Aussies and their tails are docked. So I wonder if that's where that came from, that breed standard. So it was that was a piece. And then it has a whole section how women knitting during the wars were almost like using the Navajos to do code. Women were actually knitting Morse code into pieces and sending it, so they were spies really, and they would see and hear things and they would actually knit it into a garment and send it on its way, so they were sending messages in their knitting. So that was really cool, like little piece of history, and it goes through all sorts of like little snippets like that, and I was so intrigued. But it also goes through New England, and like especially around here, we were just the textile like world here. That's how a lot of our communities developed, is through textile. So hearing all that and listening to that, so it's really cool. It follows like how sheep came wild into where humans started using sheep for meat, and then they started like, oh, we can use this wool, and it goes into this entire thing. So it's a lot. It kind of jumps back and forth in history and back and forth Europe and America and back and forth, but it does show you how we came about using wool as a textile and what we were using before that, and how it developed over time from the heritage breeds and being more of an outer garment to what we have now and how we bred that through. So there's a lot of history in there. You learn a lot about fleeces and different fibers and stuff listening to that. And if you're a history buff, you like that, and I'm kind of intrigued. Some of it I kind of go, it gets into the weeds a little too much for me. Some of it kind of gets off into not really about wool, so but only in snippets, and then it brings it right back. So I'm almost actually done with that book, and I've been kind of busy lately and like out of it and in it and out of it. So I just like to have periods of time where I can listen. So I don't want to listen to 5 minutes and then get out in 5 minutes. I want to listen for a couple chapters. So those are the books, which I am not a book person. Like I said, I don't read. I do have, I have books. A lot of them are reference books. There's color work books, dyeing books. So a lot of them are more reference books, which, gosh, if you could, I also listen to podcasts. There was one I was listening to for a while. I was kind of binge listening to all these interviews they did during COVID with different fiber artists and things. I'm sorry, I keep playing with that ruler. Another great thing, I know I'm rambling now. I got this ruler from Twice Sheared Sheep. It is a sock ruler. I don't think it's going to show you the right way on there. There we go. It's backwards, but it's really cool. It's a snap bracelet, but it's a sock ruler, so you stick it either if you're doing toe up or toe down, or toe up or cuff down. You stick it in the heel or the toe and it shows you what size it is. So if you're measuring for size, there's a regular ruler on the back. Really awesome. Highly recommend it. Toy Sheared Sheep. It's the only place I've seen it. We ordered a bunch of them for a group of us. So I forget how much they are, but it even has kid sizes on here. So kids, women's, and men's. There's your kids, women's, and men's. So really great tool. Twice Sheared Sheep. I will put it below. And then we do have some special projects going on. I have one I am doing, and I don't remember the group. I have an interview coming up. It's about traditional arts in New England and what is needed, what we think is missing, and kind of supporting the textile arts. So I'm doing it from a shepherdess point and got a few other people for her. So that's a special project. We'll share more on that as it develops. I think they have till June to submit all that. So the last thing I have for today, I had something else from New England or from New York. I just got this in the mail. So in New York at Rhinebeck, oh, there it is. I purchased one of these bags from Miss Babs. Like I couldn't, if you went near her booth at all, it was insane. So, but I saw this bag and I'm like, I need this bag. So and this is something our knit night does all the time. They say that shit will block right out. Well, I like the bag too. It's the perfect one skein little project hat bag. I have taken this bag hiking. My yarn ball stays in. I just pull out and hike and knit. It is so perfect, little size. It's actually, I push it down, the bottom is like a little bucket bag. So it is the perfect one skein. You could probably put like two, a split skein for socks in there too. Would fit in there. Perfect size. So I actually had purchased this. It does seem like the mail's already slow, so be warned. I purchased this as a gift because I was for our knit night party, holiday party, and it took a bit to come in. So she actually took mine, and I just got this one in, and I ordered a couple more. So I use a big rectangle bucket bag to carry my knitting around and whatever projects. Not my weaving, obviously, because it wouldn't fit with my looms, but around and I usually have several projects, so it fits in this big open bucket bag. But all of my notions, which are all in their own like little containers, I've got my barber cords in a container, my stitch stoppers are in container, everything's in its own container, but all of them were in the bottom of the bag. And when I wanted to find something, I couldn't find it because they were all over the bottom. So I wanted a zip up bag, and I ordered this from Miss Babs. It is bigger than it looked online. So this is probably a good 12 inches wide. It's bigger than I expected, but I thought it was super cute. And because we're a gnomestead, everyone thinks that we should have gnomes. It's not why we named our farm a gnomestead, but totally different story. We were considered trail gnomes. Like I said, I work in the woods, I take care of trails, and we were always considered trail gnomes instead of trail fairies, which thank God. So that's why when we bought our farm, we were like, oh, well, this is going to be our gnomestead then, because we live right next to trails. So I got my gnomes. It is big, but thank God it's big because it's quite full with all my notions. And then because I love that bucket bag so much, I ordered a gnome one, but it's so much bigger. Not a bad thing, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It is quite large. It's deeper than the notions bag, but super cute, same design. I actually have one of so this has 3 balls of yarn, my hand spun. This is all my Gulf Coast native, so that I'm working on this project, and all 3 balls, and there's plenty of room in there. So cute. I guess I could do bigger projects, especially when I'm carrying it all. Not that I would probably do color work while I'm hiking, but I still like it. I'm not a big project bag person. Most of the time my project bags are these. I keep my sheet bags and stuff. That's what I use. I've showed that before. Because I move around so much. I'm on a farm. I have 6 dogs. Like, whatever keeps the hair off, right? Up here in my studio, there's no dogs, so it keeps it pretty clean up here. But, you know, I put together, you know, when I do a project like this sweater is in one of these bags. Like, I make my own kits, and I use those bags and kit it all together for myself. So that's what I do. And then she sent, Miss Babs is actually, it was my first time, I don't think I have the order sheet, but it was my first time ordering from them. So like I said, I bought stuff at New York, but when I ordered it, they said, welcome, we're glad you're here. So they sent me this little card, and it was like, thank you for your purchase. And on my invoice, it said, first time customer. This actually had these cute little stitch markers attached, which I absolutely love. I got one at New York as well. And then she also sent, so detailed. I actually really love the details in it. On the back of the invoice, it had how to take care of your yarn, how to wash your yarn, like all these details, like over and above. Like, great job. They also sent a little sample skein. It's like, swatch me. It's a 10-yard sample of one of their colorways. And this is their, I guess, their Putnam line, which is crazy because Putnam's right down the road. That's where our local yarn shop is. It's a town in here in Northeast Connecticut. And this is their Starry Nights colorway. What a great way to like be like, here, sample some of our yarn. Like, ingenious. They really good job on their marketing. I'm a marketing person. I really like people's marketing. So that's really all I have for today. Like I said, a lot of changes going on. A lot went on this year. This past several months were kind of been off. But so a little rambly today. I've got so many more things that I'm working on, things to share. But we're going to go kind of keep things going. Back at it. Like I said, lambing season's coming so quickly. I mean, we had so many changes to the farm for winter, which, you know, we bring everyone up close to the house. And I've got lambing season coming, so there's still a few more things to adjust for that upcoming. And then we're going to be right into shearing, and fleece is having to go right back up to the mill. I've got some other things that need to go up to the tannery. I've got all sorts of things. So look for more. We'll be back probably in a couple weeks. I'm not sure if this is be weekly or every other week just yet, but definitely more consistent than like 6 months ago. So keep up with us, check back in. Like I said, subscribe, give us a like. Liking the videos each time is very helpful because it makes it pop up on YouTube too. So subscribe and hitting that bell so you know when a new video's up. But also hitting the like on the individual videos helps it pop up so more people can see it, and it gets better ratings as far as showing up so we can share with more people, especially with our conservation efforts. So thank you for watching. Thank you for following. You can follow farm antics and all sorts of fun stuff on our farm page. And I'm going to be starting our farm cast, so I have videos ready to upload to that, life on the farm. So if you're all interested in that, or if you want to just stay for knitting, here's your spot. Knitting and other fiber arts, because I don't just do knitting. I am too all over the place for that. All right, have a great day, and until next time, happy making.